Hello, everyone. As you have just heard twice, my name is Marchewka. And today, during this awesome TestCon conference, I would like to tell you a few things about hallway testing, a great way to enhance the usability, user interface of a product, of your product. I don't think I need to do much introduction here because you've already heard that on a video, but this is why I'm here, to force people to hear about me talking about myself. So once again, I have over 14 years of experience in testing, just highlighting it for you so that you know that you can trust what I'm talking about. And currently I work at Nokia, managing a team of over 80 people. Following the golden rule of public speaking, which says, tell the audience what you are going to say, then say it, and then tell the audience what you have just said. Here's the agenda. I would like to start with some definition, what hallway testing is, so we are all on the same page. Then go through a cognitive diversity aspect of hallway testing and usability testing in general. Then a few words about how it works based on real-life examples of hallway testing performed on a data integration platform. Then I would like to go through some practicalities, so who we should involve in the hallway testing, what can be tested, what can benefit from hallway testing, when in a testing cycle hallway testing fits the best, and how we should implement it, followed by a few red flags. I mean, what you should not do during performing hallway testing. And in the end, I would like to summarize it all with a couple of whys. So why do we even care? Why do we even want to start hallway testing? So the definition. As I mentioned at the beginning, I work at Nokia, so every time I start talking about hallway testing, the immediate response is, okay, Nokia, mobile phones, base stations. So what you do like base station testing in the corridors of your office with real mobiles. Is it safe? And then I need to explain that this has nothing to do with actually over-the-air testing and irradiation, so don't worry. But it has everything to do with the usability testing. So basically, from a very high-level perspective, hallway testing is testing using a random person that you can grab in a hallway to test your software products and interfaces. You just pick someone that's walking by, sit him or her in the front of your PC, of your mobile app, or whatever you have in mind, and ask him or her to perform some very, very basic tasks on your app. Hallway testing is a member of a big, happy family of usability testing methods. That consists not only of hallway testing, but also of remote usability testing, when you ask a tester to perform some testing in a safe environment of their own house via specific tools. A/B testing, when you maintain two different versions of your app or your web page to compare which one works best. Experts review, when you ask very experienced user interface testers to perform some tests on your app to check if it's good from a usability standpoint. Automated experts review, which uses tools to check your app or web page or whatever against golden rules of usability. And many, many, many more. So the question is, why would I pick hallway testing for this speech? Let's find out. So I talked a little bit about theory. Now it's time for a little bit practice. Let me start with a story, because a story is what everyone remembers from each and every presentation. But before I tell you the story, I would like to ask you a very simple question. Based on what I have just said, based on the definition of a hallway testing, how many of you have ever participated in a hallway testing? Please raise your hand now. Okay, a few people here in the front. Remember that. And I will ask this question to you again at the end of the story. So the story goes like that. Some time ago, my husband and I decided to go on a trip. For some reason, I don't know why, we decided to go by train. So going by train, you need to have tickets, right? So the easiest way to order a ticket is go online, on a web page of a railway company, and try to order it. So this difficult yet very important task was given to my husband. So he went online, logged into a web page, searched for a proper connection, and tried to order tickets. And he could not. He tried this, he tried that, and then he said, hey, come here, you're a tester, maybe you'll help. So I told him, okay, but why are you trying to order tickets for a train that's fully booked? There's no places on this train. And then he turned to me and said, how do you know? Well, how would I know? So the company that was designing this page, or a designer, decided to go with a color coding to help users find out whether the train is fully booked or not. So they have that kind of an icon with that kind of a color for plenty of spaces, go ahead and book. That kind of a color coding for some places are still free, but if you want to go via this train, better hurry up. And that kind of icon with that kind of color coding for no more places, find another train. Can you spot the difference? If you can spot the difference, please raise your hand. Okay, almost everyone. I can see the difference too. However, you know what? My husband is colorblind. For him, this app looked like that. So he just took a part in accidental involuntary hallway testing of an app. Actually, web page, sorry. So we, of course, sent an email to this company and explained to them that, hey, you know, for colorblind people, this is really hard to distinguish between those icons. Maybe you should say something like 100% or 50%, or maybe just black and white or something like that. And guess what happened? They did not answer. If you want to check yourself, go to Intercity PL and try to book a ticket, and you'll see exactly the same icons as I'm showing right now on the screen. So they did not benefit from this accidental and involuntary hallway testing. So I just told you an example where, this very specific example where someone could not see something on a web page. But this is, we can say that this is a very small % of people are colorblind, so maybe this is not relevant. So can we assume that if one person tests or designs an app or a web page, can he or she, going very thoroughly through the web page or through the app, uncover all the possible usability issues, usability faults of the application or a web page? Probably not. And why is that? There's this cool phenomenon that's called cognitive diversity. What's a cognitive diversity? It has nothing to do with gender, age, race, or whatever. Cognitive diversity means that we are including into activity a group of people that have totally different solving skills, totally different backgrounds. Each and every one of you on this stage, including me, has a little bit different experiences in his or her life. They come from different countries, they have been raised in different families, they are different. So they will use the app or the web page in a little bit different way than any other. And only by collecting feedbacks from many sources, from people that have different backgrounds and different problem-solving skills, we'll be able to uncover more usability faults. And this cognitive diversity aspect is not connected only with hallway testing. This is connected in general with usability and user interface testing. So remember that when you are writing your app or testing it. So we went through a very basic example and some theory, and now it's time for a real life scenario. So a true story. Here's a true story of hallway testing performed on a data integration platform. Not sure if you all know what data integration platform is. In short, it's something that takes a bunch of data, does stuff with it, and puts it in a format that's acceptable by an app or by a third party someone. So basically, it merges, centralizes, processes the data in an extremely large amount. So a bunch of developers in one company created that kind of a system, data integration platform system, and they were extremely happy with it. They use it, they cheered, it was very comfortable for them, and they were happy. But for some reason, people from other parts of the company were not so happy with it, and they didn't want to use it. And also they thought, hey, if this is so cool, maybe we'll go outside with this tool and we'll sell it outside. So, but we need to check first if there is everything okay with that. So they decided to go with a hallway testing. They decided to go with the hallway testing because it's cheap, and they were cheap. So they took a random tester, actually a developer, but also a tester, that knew how to use data integration platform, but have never ever used this particular one. They just sat him in the front of a PC and asked him do stuff. And he did. And what did he uncover? So the first task that he was given, the first task that he was supposed to do, was pretty simple. Read something from a database to an XML given some XML schema definition. This is a simplified view. For the purpose of this conference and of this speech, so there are a few icons already in place to get you an idea of how it should work. So we have, where's the pointer? I don't want to spoil it. Okay, so up there, there's a database reader that reads from a database, and in the bottom, there's a XML output file. So basically, all he had to do is to move this block that's called map in place in the middle and connect those three. So pretty simple task. It looks complicated, but it's pretty simple. So what did he try? He tried double-click. Nothing happened. Then he tried context menu, so maybe right-click would work, and I'll get the menu, and there will be add this on the screen or something like that. Still nothing. And he got stuck. And then it appeared that all he had to do was to do drag and drop. What happened here? So different developers, different users, different testers are used to a little bit different tools, different integrated development environments. So the developers were used to Microsoft Visual Studio, and the tester was used to Eclipse. So he had no idea that you could drag and drop. This is what happened. Very, very basic usability flaw. It had nothing to do with the core functionality of the whole product. So the core functionality was working okay, but it was unusable because the tester, the developer, could not simply put something on a screen. He didn't know how. The next task. Add new fields to a database structure. Pretty simple, pretty basic task, right? So here we go again. That's a graphical representation of actually a table in a database. It's also simplified for your convenience. So let's go. We are trying to add a field. Okay, we are adding a field, cool, everything works. But the tester was a little bit more smart, so he tried something else. He tried to copy and paste a field, and he could not. There was nothing in the context menu that would allow you to do copy-paste. So what happened here? Again, very, very basic usability flaw. You cannot copy and paste. You can do this in the Word, you can do this in Excel, you cannot do this in this app. So why? Well, the people that created the tool have never anticipated that someone would go wild and do something like copy-paste. They just, were used to create database, maybe add a row, but never copy-paste. And the tester was used to the scenario when in a database you need two fields for phone number. So one for a home phone number and one for a cell phone number. So he just wanted to make his life easier and copy-paste. Again, nothing to do with basic functionality, with the core functionality of a product. But again, it was maybe not unusable, but it was hard to use for a tester just because it had a basic usability flaw. So we talked that we can test via hallway testing, something with a graphical user interface, something with a GUI. But does it end here? Can we go deeper? Sure we can. It does not need to have a GUI to be able to make us want to test it with using a hallway testing method. It does not need to have a GUI. can be used, for example, in API prototyping. So every time a product interacts with the user, whether this is via a web page, whether this is via GUI, whether this is via everything, every time it interacts with the user, you can implement hallway testing. So the API prototyping. So if you are preparing an API, if you are doing it, for you, it might be pretty easy and pretty straightforward to put it like that. So we have a function do this, we have a function do this next, we have a function do this in case, you have do this last, but maybe doing this last is better, blah, blah, blah. For you, it's pretty straightforward. You understand, you know how to use API, cool, go with it. But if you show it to someone else that's not API creator, but API consumer, he might prefer it that way. For him, it might be much more straightforward to use something like that. So if you are doing API prototyping, if you are doing anything like that, you might want to consult with the API consumer. So perform a basic hallway testing on him. Ask him, hey, I'm doing it like that. Would you like to use it like that? And then he would say, no, this is totally messed up. I don't know what to tell of that. Of course, you will create a manual, you will create an instructions, but still. Examples, real-life examples. And now it's time for some practicalities. So practicalities meaning what are the golden rules of implementing hallway testing in real life? Who? Basic question. Who should we involve in a hallway testing? Basically everyone. The best thing is to start with someone that's close to you. If you're working in a software company, it might be a person walking down the hallway. If you are developing at home, it might be your husband, wife, kids, if they're old enough, your neighbor, whoever. But basically, target audience. You need to adjust the people that you are involving in a hallway testing in a way that they match the target audience for your app or for your web page. So if, for example, you are planning to create an app that will be used by students, you'd better find someone that's a student around you to do hallway testing. Because if you find someone that's 60 years old, his feedback, although valuable, might not be exactly what the students would expect from an app. So the target audience. In software companies, it's pretty simple. You have a bunch of working students, so probably it will be easy for you to find someone to test the app. So target audience and a small group. You don't need to go big, at least, especially at the beginning. It's enough to ask a few people to uncover very basic, very major usability flaws. You saw that on an example. There was just one look at the web page, and there was a color coding wrong, right? And then there were the examples from a data integration platform. So also one look. The usability flow was really, really basic. So a small group. There's even this magic number that was invented by Jakob Nielsen. He did study, a scientific research in 1993, and based on checking many usability studies, many usability tests, he calculated that it's enough to have 5 users to uncover 85% of a major basic usability flaw. With one caveat here, if the target groups that you are targeting your app to are distinct, for example, salespeople on one hand and the customers on the other, or the students and professors of children and parents, then it's good to select a small group, but from each of the target groups. Of course, this number 5, has been discussed a lot, and some say it's not always right. But from my experience, even a small group, even 1-2 people, can help you to find very basic flaws that you are not able to see yourself. So 5 people. Target audience, small numbers. What can be tested using hallway testing? I told it a little bit, I said it a little bit before, basically everything that in any way interacts with users. So if we go outside IT, you can even do a hallway testing of food, right? There's often, you have this consumerist test when people are checking if the food is good. But in IT world, mobile app, I think this is the thing that's mostly tested by hallway testing. The best results are achieved like that. PC application, that too. Web page, pretty simple, and even an API. But basically everything that has a user interface. What kind of bugs we can uncover? This is also from the examples that I have given you at the beginning. Missing functionality, so you cannot copy-paste. It's a kind of a missing functionality. Unintuitive graphical user interface. I don't know where to click. Help me. Bad color coding. This is the example that we've discussed at the beginning. If something just doesn't look right, you can find it via hallway testing. Tragic design, and basically bad user experience. This is something that you can find out via hallway testing. When to implement hallway testing in the testing in the testing cycle? When? Most of you probably are testers, the rest are developers, so the golden rule of a testing is always test as soon as possible, so at the beginning, so basically left shift and all that stuff. But this is really true for a hallway testing. Start as early as possible. Start when your prototype is ready. So, the rule of the earlier you test, the cheaper the bug fixing is. So if you find a basic usability flaw, a basic usability issue at the beginning when you are sketching the contents of your web page on a piece of paper, it's easy to fix them. Then if you find them in a very, very late stage of your product when it's already ready to be released, then at that time fixing any kind of a usability bug might be difficult and might cost you a lot. So when a prototype is ready, when you have a design, when you have anything like very, very early stages, and at the time with a small amount of people. How? So how the procedure of a hallway testing should look like, step by step. So plan in advance. I know that I said that hallway testing is pretty easy and basically you just pick a random person and sit him in the front of your app. But the planning is also important. The first thing is you need to decide who your target audience will be and select a few people and make sure that they are available for your testing. Sometimes if you grab a random person in a corridor, he or she might say, hey, I don't have time right now. So better do some planning. And what is more important, you need to find good usability use cases, use case scenarios for your testing. So simple procedures that the tester will perform during the hallway testing. So you need to plan the scenarios and you need to plan target audience. Then reserve some time. You might get some valuable feedback in first 5 minutes, but it's better to reserve some more time for the testing to make sure that he or she can perform whole scenarios even if he or she gets stuck. Note down the results carefully. This is very, very important. This is extremely important because this is the whole point of a hallway testing. You want to get a feedback from a user. You want to get a feedback from a tester. So you need to record each and every step he takes along the way. If he stucks, then it means you uncovered basic usability flaw. If he's hesitant, if he doesn't like something, even if the comments are very, let's say, unpleasant, if he says that this sucks and this color coding is awful and you should never prepare an app like that, it's still valuable because it means that more user can think like that. So make a note. You can do it on a paper, you can do it in a notepad, and or you can use a very fancy equipment that consists of tracking where the user is actually looking at your app to let you know which part of a web page is most attractive to the user. Analyze. Once you took down the notes, once you have the content, sit down and analyze where the user was stuck, why it was, what happened here, what we should improve. The best way is to do this in group, and even better if the other person in your group that is analyzing the results is someone who did not participate in creating the product. So note down, analyze. Repeat. Repetitiveness is a very important part of a hallway testing. You test once, fix something, test again, fix something, test again, fix something. Because hallway testing is pretty easy and cheap, you can do it. So small groups and repetitiveness. So iteration over iteration. This is very, very important. Just don't. What you should never do when you are performing hallway testing. There are two major things that you should avoid. First one is inventing overcomplicated scenarios. I told you that when you are preparing for a hallway testing session, you should invent some use cases. Yes, those use cases should be very, very simple, very straightforward. In all the examples that I have showed you, the scenarios were pretty simple, and yet they uncovered major usability flaws. If you invent something very complicated, something that is not likely to happen in a real usage of an app, then you probably miss the basic usability flaws. So the scenario should be pretty simple. It should consist of something that's really straightforward. And the other thing that's much, much harder for the person that's supervising usability hallway testing, never ever guide a tester through the process. Because you lose the whole point of hallway testing. If you tell him or her what to do, you'll miss his own view on your app. This is very hard because you're just willing to tell him or her, okay, just click this. This is the next step. I know from myself, I had to bite my tongue many times when I was performing hallway testing. But this is the whole point. You'll get an insight into a brain of a tester, how he reacts to your app. So never guide him to the process. Also, one caveat, if he's really, really stuck and he cannot move anywhere, then maybe he or she needs a little push. But only if it's like 5 minutes, nothing's working, then maybe it's the time to do that. So I talked a little bit about everything. The hallway testing is not perfect, right? It doesn't solve any problems, but I don't think any testing method solves them. So the major flaws of usability hallway testing is that you are not always testing with real end users, unless your app is targeted to only your software company and your colleagues, then you are. But in many cases, the users that are testing your app, the people that are taking part in a hallway testing, are not the real users that will use it in the end. The second flaw that hallway testing has is that the people that are doing the test are usually not experts. They are not experts of GUI design. They are not experts in the graphics. So if they will look at your app or at your web page and they will tell you, okay, this doesn't look good, they will not be able to explain you what it doesn't look good means. They will just have this gut feeling that something's wrong, right? So you will need to invent how to fix it yourself. They will give you feedback, but it will not be how to fix it, only what to fix. But we still want to use it. So why do we want to use it? Why do we want to use usability testing, and why I think this is a very good addition to overall test cycle? It's simple. You don't need any complicated tools. You don't need any very complicated process to follow. You don't need apps. Basically, all you need is a person and your app and some time. So it's very, very simple. It's cheap. Again, no tools, your app, a person. You don't need to pay. It might cost you a beer if you are testing it on your neighbor, or it might cost you a lunch if you are testing it with your colleague at work, but nothing more. Of course, there are companies that are doing hallway testing for other companies, and in that case, this is pretty expensive. But I think that this beats the whole purpose of hallway testing. You should do it yourself in your home. So cheap. And this is fast. You are getting your feedback almost immediately after performing an iteration of tests. You just see how the random person will use your app. The feedback is this minute. You don't need to wait 2 weeks for the results from an expert. So simple, cheap, fast, pretty easy to implement, pretty easy to do in iterations. And overall, I think this is a great addition to overall other testing methods that you have. And with hallway testing, you can uncover all basic usability flaws pretty simple and pretty fast. And that's it. Thank you.